Medal of Honor. The Medal of Honor is the United States government's highest and most prestigious military decoration that may be awarded to recognize American soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, Space Force guardians, and Coast Guardsmen who have distinguished themselves by acts of valor. The medal is normally awarded by the President of the United States, but as it is presented in the name of the United States Congress, it is often referred to as the Congressional Medal of Honor. There are three distinct variants of the medal: one for the Department of the Army, awarded to soldiers; one for the Department of the Navy, awarded to sailors and Marines, as well as Coast Guardsmen of the Department of Homeland Security; and one for the Department of the Air Force, awarded to airmen and Space Force guardians. The Medal of Honor was introduced for the Department of the Navy in 1861, soon followed by the Department of the Army's version in 1862. The Department of the Air Force used the Department of the Army's version until they received their own distinctive version in 1965. The Medal of Honor is the oldest continuously issued combat decoration of the United States Armed Forces. The President typically presents the Medal of Honor at a formal ceremony intended to represent the gratitude of the American people, with posthumous presentations made to the primary next of kin. According to the Medal of Honor Historical Society of the United States, there have been 3,526 Medals of Honor awarded to 3,507 individuals since the decoration's creation, with over 40% awarded for actions during the American Civil War. In 1990, Congress designated March 25 annually as National Medal of Honor Day. Medal of Honor Day is a United States federal observance that is celebrated every year on March 25. It was created to honor the heroism and sacrifice of Medal of Honor recipients for the United States. The holiday has been celebrated since 1991, when George H.W. Bush signed Public Law 101-564 on November 15, 1990, which was passed by the 101st United States Congress in November 1990, and created it. The holiday was chosen to be celebrated on March 25 to honor the 23 men who participated in the Great Locomotive Chase and received Medals of Honor for it, particularly William Bensinger, Robert Buffum, Elihu H. Mason, Jacob Parrott, William Pittenger, and William H. Reddick, who received the first 6 Medals of Honor on March 25, 1863. After the Second World War, both the Army and Navy produced hardbound Medal of Honor compilations. Between 1964 and 1979, the United States Senate Subcommittee on Veterans Affairs of the Committee on Labor and Public Welfare and later the Committee on Veterans Affairs produced a number of consolidated compilations of all Medal of Honor citations to date. Additions and changes to the list of recipients of the medal since the 1979 have been regularly published by the Congressional Research Service. The first African American recipient for this award was William Harvey Carney, who, despite being shot in the face, shoulders, arms, and legs, refused to let the American flag touch the ground. The only female Medal of Honor recipient is Mary Edwards Walker, a Civil War surgeon. Her medal was rescinded in 1917 along with many other non-combat awards, but it was restored by President Jimmy Carter in 1977. While current law, 10 U.S.C., beginning in 1918, explicitly states that recipients must be serving in the U.S. Armed Forces at the time of performing a valorous act that warrants the award, exceptions have been made. Notably, Charles Lindbergh, while a reserve member of the U.S. Army Air Corps, received his Medal of Honor as a civilian pilot. Although Medals of Honor can only be awarded to members of the U.S. Armed Forces, being a U.S. citizen is not a prerequisite for eligibility to receive the medal. 61 Canadians who were serving in the United States Armed Forces have received the Medal of Honor, most received it for actions in the American Civil War. Since 1900, only 4 have been awarded to Canadians. In the Vietnam War, Peter C. Lemon was the only Canadian-born recipient of the Medal of Honor. However, he was a U.S. citizen. The American Civil War, 1861–1865, was a war between the United States, the Union, and the southern states of the newly formed Confederate States of America under Jefferson Davis. The Medal of Honor was established during this conflict. 1,523 were awarded, 33 posthumously, for acts of bravery and gallantry in combat. Most awards were granted after the end of the Civil War, with 2 late awards to Andrew Jackson Smith and Alonzo Cushing in 2001 and 2014. Indian Wars. Main article: List of Medal of Honor recipients for the Indian Wars. The term Indian Wars is the name generally used in the United States to describe a series of conflicts between colonial or federal governments and the American Indian population resident in North America before the arrival of white settlers. During this conflict, the Medal of Honor was presented to 426 soldiers, 13 posthumously for acts of bravery and gallantry in combat. Some 20 Medal of Honor recipients were involved in the Wounded Knee Massacre. Korean Expedition. The United States expedition to Korea in 1871, also known as Shinmay-Yanjo, Western Disturbance of the Shinmay, 1871, year, was the first American military action in Korea. It took place predominantly on and around the Korean island of Ganghae. The reason for the presence of the American Military Expeditionary Force in Korea was to support an American diplomatic delegation sent to establish trade and diplomatic relations with Korea and to ascertain the fate of the General Sherman merchant ship. The isolationist nature of the Joseon dynasty government and the assertiveness of the Americans led to an armed conflict between the two parties. Eventually, the United States failed to secure its objectives. Spanish-American War. The Spanish-American War, Spanish, Guerra Hispano-Estadounidense, Disaster del 98, Guerra Hispano-Cubana Norteamericana or Guerra de Cuba, was a military conflict between Spain and the United States that began in April 1898. Hostilities halted in August of that year, and the Treaty of Paris was signed in December. The war began after the American demand for Spain's peacefully resolving the Cuban fight for independence was rejected, though strong expansionist sentiment in the United States may have motivated the government to target Spain's remaining overseas territories, Cuba, Puerto Rico, the Philippines, Guam, and the Caroline Islands. Riots in Havana by pro-Spanish voluntarios gave the United States reason to send in the warship USS Maine. This action by the U.S. indicated high national interest. Tension among the American people was raised because of the explosion of USS Maine, and yellow journalism that accused Spain of extensive atrocities, agitating American public opinion. The war ended after decisive naval victories for the United States in the Philippines and Cuba. The Treaty of Paris ended the conflict 109 days after the outbreak of war, giving the United States ownership of the former Spanish colonies of Puerto Rico, the Philippines, and Guam. 111 people received the Medal of Honor from the Spanish-American War. Samoan Civil War. The Samoan Civil War, occurred in the Samoa Islands of the South Pacific in the late 19th century. The Samoan Civil Wars were a series of conflicts between Germany, the United Kingdom, and the United States, ending in the partitioning of the island chain in 1899. The concluding event was the Second Samoan Civil War. The First Samoan Civil War lasted for 8 years. The warring Samoan parties were supplied with arms, training, and sometimes even combat troops by Germany, Britain and the United States. These three powers valued Samoa as a refueling station for coal-fired shipping. In addition, these countries sought to gain more power in Europe and wanted Samoa due to the scarcity of unclaimed territory from 1870 onwards. Philippine American War. The Philippine American War was an armed military conflict between the United States and insurgents calling themselves the First Philippine Republic, fought between 1899 and at least 1902, which arose from a Filipino political struggle against U.S. occupation of the Philippines. While the conflict was officially declared over on July 4, 1902, American troops continued hostilities against remnants of the insurgent Philippine Army and other insurgent groups until 1913, and some historians consider these unofficial mop-up operations part of the war. 86 men were awarded the Medal of Honor for their actions in the Philippine American War, 70 from the Army, 10 from the Navy, and 6 from the Marine Corps. 4 of the awards were posthumous. Among the recipients were Webb Hayes, the son of former U.S. President Rutherford B. Hayes, and 2 prominent Marine Corps officers, Hiram I. Bierce and David Dixon Porter. Bierce became known for leading long-range reconnaissance patrols behind enemy lines and was later wounded as a colonel in World War I. Porter was from a distinguished military family and rose to become a major general. Jose B. Nisperos, a member of the Philippine Scouts who was honored for continuing to fight after being wounded, was the first Asian recipient of the Medal of Honor. Boxer Rebellion. The Boxer Movement or Boxer Rebellion, which occurred in China from November 1899 to September 7, 1901, was an uprising by members of the Chinese Society of Right and Harmonious Fists against foreign influence in areas such as trade, politics, religion, and technology that occurred in China during the final years of the Manchu rule, Qing dynasty. The members of the Society of Right and Harmonious Fists were simply called boxers by the Westerners due to the martial arts and calisthenics they practiced. The uprising began as a xenophobic, anti-foreign, nationalist peasant-based movement in northern China. They attacked foreigners who were building railroads and supposedly violating feng shui, as well as Christians, who were held responsible for the foreigners in China. In June 1900, the Boxers invaded Beijing and killed 230 non-Chinese. Tens of thousands of Chinese Christians, Catholic and Protestant alike, were killed mostly in Shandong and Shaanxi provinces as part of the uprising. This drew criticism from many Chinese, including Chinese Christian Sun Yat-sen, later to help overthrow the Manchu dynasty in 1911 and become first president of the Republic of China. The government of Empress Dowager Cixi was not helpful, and diplomats, foreign civilians, soldiers and some Chinese Christians retreated to the legation quarter where they held out for 55 days until a multinational coalition rushed 20,000 troops to their rescue. The Chinese government was forced to indemnify the victims and make many additional concessions. Subsequent reforms implemented after the crisis of 1900 laid the foundation for the end of the Qing dynasty and the establishment of the modern Chinese Republic. During the Boxer Rebellion, 59 American servicemen received the Medal of Honor for their actions. 4 of these were for Army personnel, 22 went to Navy sailors and the remaining 33 went to Marines. Harry Fisher was the first Marine to receive the medal posthumously and the only posthumous recipient for this conflict. 20th century. United States occupation of Veracruz, 1914. The United States occupation of the Mexican port of Veracruz lasted for 6 months in response to the Tampico Affair of April 9, 1914. The incident came in the midst of poor diplomatic relations between Mexico and the United States, related to the ongoing Mexican Revolution. Secretary of the Navy Josephus Daniels ordered that 56 medals of honor be awarded to participants in the occupation of Veracruz, the most for any single action before or since. In total 63 medals of honor were received for actions during the occupation, 1 Army, 9 to members of the United States Marine Corps and 53 to Navy personnel. Invasion and occupation of Haiti. The first United States occupation of Haiti began on July 28, 1915 and ended in mid-August 1934. Occupation of the Dominican Republic. The United States occupied the Dominican Republic from 1916 to 1924. In May 1917, Rear Admiral William Caperton forced Arias to leave Santo Domingo by threatening the city with naval bombardment. U.S. Marines invaded and took control of the country within 2 months. In November that same year, the U.S. imposed a military government. The Marines restored order throughout most of the Republic, with the exception of the eastern region. The country's budget was balanced, its debt was diminished, and economic growth resumed. Infrastructure projects produced new roads that linked all the country's regions for the first time in its history. A professional military organization, the Dominican Constabulary Guard, replaced the partisan forces that had waged a seemingly endless struggle for power. World War I. World War I, also known as the First World War and the Great War, was a global military conflict which took place primarily in Europe from 1914 to 1918. Over 40 million casualties resulted, including approximately 20 million military and civilian deaths. Over 60 million European soldiers were mobilized from 1914 to 1918. The immediate cause of the war was the June 28, 1914 assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, by Gavrilo Princip, a Bosnian Serb citizen of Austria-Hungary and member of the Black Hand. The retaliation by Austria-Hungary against Serbia activated a series of alliances that set off a chain reaction of war declarations. Within a month, much of Europe was in a state of open warfare. During this war, 126 men received the Medal of Honor for their actions, with 5 Marines receiving both the Army and Navy versions of the medal for the same action. Occupation of Nicaragua. The United States occupied Nicaragua from 1909 to 1933 and intervened in the country several times before that. The American interventions in Nicaragua were designed to prevent the construction of a Trans-Isthmian Canal by any nation but the USA and stop endless civil war. Nicaragua assumed a quasi-protectorate status under the 1916 Chamorro-Bryan Treaty. The occupation ended as Augusto Cesar Sandino, a Nicaraguan insurgent, led guerrilla bands against U.S. troops. Furthermore, the onset of the Great Depression made it costly for the U.S. to maintain occupation. World War II. World War II, or the Second World War, was a global military conflict. The conflicts joined from two separate conflicts. The first began in Asia in 1937 as the Second Sino-Japanese War, the other began in Europe in 1939 with the German and Russian invasion of Poland. This global conflict split the majority of the world's nations into two opposing military alliances, the Allies and the Axis powers. It involved the mobilization of over 100 million military personnel, making it the most widespread war in history, and placed the participants in a state of total war, erasing the distinction between civil and military resources. This resulted in the complete activation of a nation's economic, industrial, and scientific capabilities for the purposes of the war effort. Over 60 million people, the majority of them civilians, were killed, making it the deadliest conflict in human history. The worldwide financial cost of the war is estimated at $1,1944 US, making it the most costly war both in capital expenditures as well as loss of lives. During this conflict 471 United States military personnel received the Medal of Honor, 273 of them posthumously. A total of 42 Medals of Honor, representing 9% of all awarded during World War II, were presented for action in just 2 battles, 15 for actions during the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, and 27 for actions during the Battle of Iwo Jima. Also a total of 21, 4.5% of all World War II Medals of Honor, were awarded to members of the all-Japanese American 100th Infantry Battalion of the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, for actions in numerous battles across 6 different campaigns. Additionally, the only Medal of Honor ever presented to a member of the United States Coast Guard, Douglas Albert Monroe, was received for actions during this war. Korean War. The Korean War was ignited by the 1950 invasion of South Korea when the North Korean Army moved south on June 25, 1950 to attempt to reunite the Korean peninsula, which had been formally divided since 1948. The conflict was then expanded by the United States, China's and the Soviet Union's involvement. The main hostilities were during the period from June 25, 1950, until the Korean Armistice Agreement was signed on July 27, 1953. In South Korea, the war is often called 625, or the 625 War, Korean, 625, from the date of the start of the conflict or, more formally, Hangukjeonjaang literally, Korean War. In North Korea, while commonly known as the Korean War, it is formally called the Fatherland Liberation War. In the early days of the war, United States President Harry Truman called the United Nations response a police action. The war is sometimes called the Forgotten War because it is a major conflict of the 20th century that gets less attention than World War II, which preceded it, and the controversial Vietnam War, which succeeded it. In China, the conflict was known as the War to Resist America and Aid Korea, but is today commonly called the Korean War. During this war, 145 Medals of Honor were presented for bravery in action, 107 of them posthumously. Vietnam War. The Vietnam War, also known as the Second Indochina War, and in Vietnam as the American War, occurred from 1959 to April 30, 1975. The term, Vietnam conflict, is often used to refer to events which took place between 1959 and April 30, 1975. The war was fought between the Communist-supported Democratic Republic of Vietnam, North Vietnam, and the United States-supported Republic of Vietnam, South Vietnam. During the Vietnam War and in the following 12 months, 234 Medals of Honor were received, and since 1978 a further 26 awards have been presented. Of the total of 260 awards, 174 were to the U.S. Army, 15 to the U.S. Navy, 57 to the USMC and 14 to the U.S. Air Force. The first medal of the war was presented to Roger Donlin for rescuing and administering first aid to several wounded soldiers and leading a group against an enemy force. The first African American recipient of the war was Milton L. Olive, III, who sacrificed himself to save others by smothering a grenade with his body. Riley L. Pitts was killed after attacking an enemy force with rifle fire and grenades and was the first African American commissioned officer of the war to receive the medal. Thomas Bennett was a conscientious objector who received the medal for his actions as a medic. 3 chaplains received the medal, including Vincent R. Capodanno, who served with the Marine Corps and was known as the Grunt Padre. USS Liberty Incident. The USS Liberty incident was an attack on a neutral United States Navy technical research ship, USS Liberty, by Israeli jet fighter planes and motor torpedo boats on June 8, 1967, during the Six-Day War. The combined air and sea attack killed 34 and wounded more than 170 crew members, and damaged the ship severely. Post-Vietnam. Since the end of the Vietnam War, also known as the Vietnam Conflict and Second Indochina War, the United States was involved in a number of smaller conflicts during the end of the Cold War, including in Grenada, Panama, and elsewhere. In the post-Cold War, the United States was involved in conflicts in the Middle East, Africa, the Caribbean, and in the Balkans. No medals of honor have been awarded for any of the aforementioned conflicts so far, either proactively or retroactively. Somalia. On October 3, 1993, during the Battle of Mogadishu, members of the U.S. Army Rangers and SOCOM's Delta Force executed a mission to capture members of General Mohammed Farah Aidid's forces. In the ensuing battle, two U-60 Black Hawk helicopters were shot down. As the second Black Hawk, containing Chief Warrant Officer Michael Durant, was hit and crashed, Master Sergeant Gary I. Gordon and Sergeant First Class Randall D. Shughart were in a nearby Black Hawk monitoring radio traffic. Gordon and Shughart were part of a sniper team for Delta Force that was assigned to watch over the operation, engaging targets from their position in the Black Hawk. As they monitored the downing of the second Black Hawk, it became evident that ground forces would not be available to secure the crash site and protect the critically injured crew of 4, all of whom survived the crash. Gordon, the sniper team leader, requested that they be inserted at the second crash site. His request was denied twice before finally being approved on the third request. The snipers were armed only with their sniper rifles and pistols. Upon reaching the downed Black Hawk, which was under intense enemy fire, Gordon and Shughart pulled the crew from the wreckage and proceeded to set up a defensive perimeter. The snipers, assisted by the severely injured Durant, began to engage the attacking Somalis from the opposite side of the wreckage using assault rifles stored on the Black Hawk. Shughart and Gordon were eventually mortally wounded after nearly exhausting all available ammunition. Durant, the only survivor, was taken hostage. According to Durant's account, 25 Somalis were killed and many more were wounded. On Monday, May 23, 1994, President Clinton presented the Medal of Honor to the widows of Gordon and Shughart. They are the only snipers to have received the Medal of Honor. The film Black Hawk Down, based on the book of the same name, includes a narrative of the events. 21st century. War in Afghanistan. The war in Afghanistan, which began on October 7, 2001, was launched by the United States, the United Kingdom, and NATO allies in response to the September 11 attacks. It was the beginning of the War on Terror. The stated purpose of the invasion was to capture Osama bin Laden, destroy Al-Qaeda and remove the Taliban regime which had provided support and safe harbor to Al-Qaeda. Since 2001, 17 American service members have received the Medal of Honor for actions in Afghanistan, 4 of them posthumously. Army Sergeant First Class Jared C. Monty received his medal for attempting to rescue a wounded soldier at the cost of his own life. Navy Lieutenant Michael P. Murphy received his for actions against insurgent forces and for sacrificing his life to call for help when his team had been overwhelmed by a much larger enemy force. Army Staff Sergeant Robert James Miller's surviving family was presented with his medal on October 6, 2010. The fourth recipient, Salvatore Giunta, received his for his actions in 2007 when he risked his life to save a wounded comrade. He is the first living recipient since the Vietnam War. A second living recipient, Sergeant First Class Leroy Petrie, received the medal from President Obama during a July 12, 2011 ceremony. Marine Corps Corporal Dakota Meyer became the third living recipient awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions during the Battle of Ganjagal. An additional 12 recipients, 11 living and 1 posthumous, have been awarded the medal since Meyer. There have been 12 awards to the U.S. Army, 3 to the U.S. Navy, 2 to the U.S. Marine Corps and 1 to the U.S. Air Force. Iraq War. The Iraq War, known in the United States as Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Telek in the United Kingdom, was a conflict which began on March 20, 2003 with the United States-led invasion of Iraq by a multinational coalition composed of United States and United Kingdom troops supported by smaller contingents from Australia, Poland, as well as other nations. 6 service members have received the Medal of Honor for actions in Iraq, 4 from the Army, 1 from the Marine Corps and 1 from the Navy. Paul Ray Smith was the first to receive it for his actions on April 4, 2003 when he held enemy forces back, allowing other wounded soldiers to be evacuated to safety. The other 5 recipients were Staff Sergeant David Bellavia, Staff Sergeant Travis Atkins, Corporal Jason Dunham of the Marine Corps, Specialist Ross A. McGinnis of the Army, and Master-at-Arms 2nd Class Michael A. Monsor of the U.S. Navy. The latter 4 of these each received it after being killed while using their own bodies to smother explosive devices to protect their comrades. Non-combat. Before 1963, the Medal of Honor could be received for actions not involving direct combat with enemy or opposing foreign forces, and 193 men earned the medal in this way. Most of these medals were presented to members of the United States Navy for rescuing or attempting to rescue someone from drowning. One of those awarded the Medal of Honor for rescuing others was Fireman 2nd Class Telesforo Trinidad, who, as of 2020, has been the only Asian American sailor to be awarded the Medal of Honor. In addition to the medals that were presented for life-saving acts, one Medal of Honor was presented to William Halford, who sailed in a small boat for 31 days to get help for the other crew of USS Saginaw who had been stranded on an island. 3 explorers were also presented with the medal by special acts of Congress. Charles Lindbergh received the medal for flying the first solo non-stop flight across the Atlantic Ocean. Floyd Bennett and Richard Evelyn Byrd received it for their participation in what was thought to be the first successful heavier-than-air flight to the North Pole and back. One recipient, Adolphus W. Greeley, received his for a lifetime of military service. Foreign. Current Law 10 U.S.C. 6241 explicitly states that recipients must be serving in the U.S. Armed Forces at the time of performing a valorous act that warrants the award. However, the Medal of Honor has been presented to 5 First World War unknown soldiers of Allied countries: the British Unknown Warrior in the United Kingdom by General Pershing on October 17, 1921, the Romanian Unknown Soldier, the French Unknown Soldier, entombed under the Arc de Triomphe, the Belgian Unknown Soldier, and the Italian Unknown Soldier, entombed in the monument of Vittorio Emanuele II. Each of the countries reciprocally awarded medals to the U.S. Unknown Soldier.